You're listening to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. From our studios come special guests and netball commentary, exclusively on YouTube.
G'day listeners, we've been off air for a little while, but I'll tell you what, it's exciting. International netball starting next Tuesday at the Horncastle Arena in Christchurch, Australia versus New Zealand. And it's g'day to my co-host, Luke Herbert, to preview the Constellation Cup.
And greetings to you, Ben, from the other side of the ditch. And, you know, the studio here is looking a bit shabby, but I understand that there's been more work done at your end.
There has been more work. I might have a coffee next to me, but I've got a lovely cup of Dilmar tea. That's not a sponsor's plug, just saying I'm enjoying a nice cup of tea for a change this morning.
I drank Dilmar tea for 15 years until they messed around with the flavouring and the strength of the tea bags. But we need to actually get to netball. Strangely enough, this is not the 3 tea bag show.
No.
But, you know, just starting us off, Ben, then, what do you think of the changes to the Australian Diamonds lineup?
Obviously, it's forced due to retirements. You've got Julie Coletto out, Kim Green out, and Rebecca Bully out. But then coming in, you've got Claire McMiniman, Ash Brazel, Gabby Simpson, and Gretel Tippett, and Jo Weston might even get a run in defence in the Australian leg of the series. I think really this is a transitional period. The changes are they're quite big, obviously, with Coletto out. Of course, Bully was always more of a depth player because she was a victim of circumstance. Green was very, very good in the midcourt, but the likes of a Brazel, etc., coming in, it's going to hopefully fill that void. But it's very much a transitional kind of period for Lisa Alexander, isn't it, Luke?
It is, and we're going to come back to that a little bit later in the program, just because I want to touch on Maria Tutaia taking an extended break from the game. That's an extended break from the Silver Ferns. I think she's made the right decision, and Netball New Zealand and the Silver Ferns coaches have been wise to let her do that. I think she gets to weigh up her future, and she'll also be mentally refreshed, because she's been at the top level for 10 years. So, you know, I think the break will ultimately do her good.
I think it will too, but at the same time too, you see Miriam Wells coming in. She's a little bit inexperienced, and she may not perform all that well. But it was interesting when she came into the side last year. She actually fitted in reasonably well. I remember her first test; she played really well.
Well, it's a huge ask for anyone to step into Tutaia's shoes in the Silver Ferns. Let me make that one point very clear, as I'm sure the listener is aware of. But that said, the rest of the Silver Ferns squad is, you know, it's basically their strongest lineup minus Tutaia. You know, a player like Leanna De Bruyn is still in the squad, and De Bruyn has come out and said publicly that, you know, if they won at the World Cup, she probably wouldn't be there. So she's having one last crack against the old foe Australia, and, you know, it'll be up to the next Silver Ferns coach who takes over after Y to begin the process of rebuilding the side for the next 4-year cycle.
Talking about the replacement for Y, has there been any much word within the New Zealand media about who will replace her? I mean, I do follow it, but I haven't really seen too much word about who they think will replace Y.
There really hasn't been a lot at all, and I think that's because of the lack of depth of top-level coaches in New Zealand. You and I have discussed the lack of developmental pathways in New Zealand as you get towards the higher levels of the game quite a bit on this program. And, you know, apart from players, which has been most frequently talked about, it's affected the depth and quality of coaches at the top level and umpires. Now, umpiring is something we have discussed and is for another time. But, you know, there is a dearth of top-level coaches in New Zealand. There's a big shortage.
That's obviously a topic for another day, but another interesting thing will be, how do you think things will work in attack without Maria Tutaia and Wells coming in?
I think, you know, you'll start to see the importance of Bailey Mez, you know, start to come back under not necessarily the microscope, but, you know, it will show the Silver Ferns having more of a mobile attacking line or shooting lineup, which is, you know, moving away from what they had with the tall shooter and Irene and what they were working on or towards at the World Cup.
And other than that, though, do you think there'll be any anything serious changes? Like, could we see the style of play changing a bit with the structure and what have you? Because Tutaia is very mobile and she does a lot of work, but then again, though, Wells is probably a little bit taller and she's probably a little bit more stationary, isn't she?
Yeah, I would say so. I would think that there will be changes to how the Silver Ferns shooting circle is fed, and that's going to as we saw at the World Cup, when those links aren't second nature, they crack under pressure. And pressure brings me to the next section of the program, and we might as well just sort of kick this off. But, how do you think the series will go, Ben?
I think the series could go, we probably could really see the Silver Ferns trying to get a bit of revenge. But at the same time, too, as we discussed off air, it could be Diamonds 4-0 or Diamonds 3-1. Of course, as we know, the Silver Ferns don't always do that well when they play tests in Australia. But it could be a different story in New Zealand. But then again, the Diamonds, even though they've had that changes to the lineup, I think Lisa Alexander will have things working like clockwork.
Oh, she will, and we're going to come back to a brief note on coaching in a moment, but I think if the Australian Diamonds were to play their strongest lineup in all 4 games, they'd win the series 4-0, but because they're entering a rebuilding phase after the World Cup, they're not going to do that. Lisa Alexander's too smart a coach, so the degree to which I think they win the series with will depend on how much they experiment and tinker with. So, they could win 3-1. I mean, it's possible the series is split 2-2. I think the Australians will win it, the Diamonds. But, it is a rebuilding phase for the Australians, and they're ahead of the curve in that area, Ben.
Absolutely. I mean, Lisa Alexander has come out publicly in the last couple of weeks over here in Australia in the media and has said, look, although we are world champions, there will be changes made, and I don't think people are really suggesting that they will come out and win 4-0. But if they want to, they will. But if they won't, they won't. It's just a matter of what Lisa does with their lineup, really. I think.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for them to win 4-0 because it would give them the short-term game of, beating the Silver Ferns, but it wouldn't do anything good for the development of the side. So, but, do you think there are any key players for the Australian Diamonds that will stand up that weren't there at the World Cup amongst the newcomers?
I can probably see someone like a Claire McMiniman coming in. McMiniman's been on the periphery of the Australian team for quite a few years now. She was part of the 12 that played in the series last year. She didn't exactly get a lot of court time, but I think McMiniman can step up in defence if she's given an opportunity. And also Ash Brazel. I think both of us have spoken about it off air, Luke. We're big fans of how Brazel plays, and she's very athletic and got sort of an unorthodox style sometimes in the way she goes about things on court and off court. And if she can get an opportunity, that'd be really good as well. Because as you would remember, we interviewed her, but then I think it was the next day she injured herself and had to pull out from the test in Melbourne and couldn't make her debut.
Yeah, that was a crying shame, and it was a great interview we had with her. And I think it's great that she's finally making her way into the Diamonds squad, and I look forward to seeing her and the Fever play the Steel next season in Invercargill. That is going to be a good game, I think. It's one of the games I'm looking forward to on next season's schedule for the ANZ Championship. But I just want to touch on coaching briefly, and you and I discussed this a little bit off air. But we saw at the Rugby World Cup, Japan beating South Africa, and that was...
We did.
That was probably the equivalent of, say, Wales beating the Silver Ferns in netball. And how they did it in that, I'm not even really sure because I'm not hugely into rugby, but I think the point here to make is that even when you've got very talented athletes out there, coaching still matters, and it still matters if you're playing a major nation, a top tier nation, or a minor nation. So I think that's, kind of coming back to what we were saying about, the rebuilding phase for the Australian Diamonds and just how the Silver Ferns go without Maria Tutaya. I think coaching is going to be, the keys to all of that, just like it was for Japan beating South Africa for an historic result.
It will be, Luke, like the saying goes, you may have the cattle, but you've got to be able to gel that cattle together or put that cattle together and get it to work cohesively. I know there was a lot of expectations, I think, on the Silver Ferns leading into the World Cup and, usual major tournaments. And then when they've failed, there's automatically been saying, what's happening with the players. But sometimes the coaches have got away with things. But on the other hand, they've been blamed a bit too. But it's a two-edged sword. If you're going to win a series, it's going to be the coach working together well with the players and the players working well together with the coach. It works both ways.
Oh, absolutely. And we're not suggesting that, either team has problems between the coaches and the players or anything like that, just to make that clear to the listener. Because this is audio, not video, so you don't necessarily get what we're conveying as well as you would if we had a flash television studio by Del Marti. But you're absolutely right there, Ben. And the one thing I would just add to that is that the coaches or the selectors make the selections, and no player is going to turn down playing for their country. Let's face it. So like at the last Commonwealth Games, some poor selections were made in the Silver Ferns squad. And, what player was going to turn down the chance to play for their country, even though they weren't the right choice?
Yeah, that's right. You talk about selections again. There's been a bit of media, I would say, media dust up or whatever you want to call it in New Zealand. I was reading the other day, Latu not being picked again. Is it real? Is it really covering just going over old ground, or what's the story there? And Latu has come out quite publicly recently and expressed. Would you say it was disappointment, or what was it?
Well, I think Latu is expressing her disappointment. Whether or not she should have been more careful of wording is perhaps up for question, but I think Latu has been a victim of, perhaps you might use the term circumstances, or I would, for lack of a better one, immediately offhand. And she's not a mobile shooter.
Yeah, she's stationary.
Yes, and modern day or present day shooting ends at the top level of netball. We're talking like ANZ Championship and higher. You can have a tall shooter, but unless you got a very tall shooter, like the Southern still have or the Queensland Firebirds have, then you are looking to a mobile attacking end. And I think coaches have worked out that generally the preference is for a mobile shooting end because it makes life harder for the defenders. They have a harder time confusing the space, or they also, you can open up more space for the feeders. So, it's very difficult to find those advantages just with one tall shooter.
It is. I mean, you look at the West Coast Fever a couple of years ago. Until Nat Medhurst came along, they always had like a shorter shooter. I think it was Leah Shord was there for a period. And while Leah is a good player, I'll credit to her. I believe she's still running around in the New South Wales State League these days. She just couldn't always work well with Bassett. But you look now. It took them a little while, but look how well Medhurst and Bassett have gelled, and it's been proven when they've played together in the Diamonds as well.
Well, Bassett is an absolute shooting machine that the Silver have failed to stop in for like 4 years. And credit to her coaches at ANZ Championship and international level, and credit to her. I think she's going to be one of the great Australian Diamonds players. And and her pet bunny rabbits must support her when she goes away as well. Yeah,
I saw those on social media. She adores her rabbits.
So hello to the bunny rabbits.
And just also looking ahead to it's a 4-test series, and we'll just give out the dates for the listeners if they're interested. It's next Tuesday, the 20th of October at the Horncastle Arena in Christchurch, New Zealand. Then next Thursday, the 22nd of October, the Vector Arena in Auckland. I'll tell you, I would have loved to have gone to Vector last year for the test, but I had to go all the way out to the Trust Stadium in Waitakere when I was over in New Zealand last year. And then on I think it's the 25th of October, Hisense Arena in Melbourne, which I'll be at. And then on the 30th of October, a Friday, it's at the Perth Arena in Perth. Perth don't get too many tests, and I'm sure Netball WA and the wider netball fraternity in WA are excited to be seeing some international netball. The Perth Arena has usually had pretty good crowds when the Fever have played there, and it's been used for the NBL with the basketball, and they've had extremely good crowds for that too at the Perth Arena.
Does the roof leak?
No, it doesn't. No, that was at the old venue in Perth.
Oh, that was mean, but in all seriousness, I'm very happy that Perth is getting an international game. They're pretty well starved of international netball, and because, as we were talking about off air, not so much the tyranny of distance, but the tyranny of time zones. You look at some of the times the West Coast Fever and the ANZ Championship play their games, and they're starting games before 10 a.m.
They are purely so the Eastern Seaboard states can see these games live on television.
In New Zealand as well.
Yeah, correct.
The other thing I'll mention just quickly before we wrap up in this studio is, just to use an example, Bailey Mez is going to bring back all her experience and what she's learnt to the Silver Ferns to the tactic, and that means next season the tactic shooting end's potentially going to be very lethal, because they still have Kawanda at the other end. Kawanda, sorry.
Yep.
Which players do you think the new to the Australian Diamonds are going to be particularly useful in the knowledge and experience they bring back to the ANZ Championship sides?
I reckon probably someone like probably a Gabby Simpson and a Tippett, just bringing stuff back to their respective sides. I mean, they've obviously been exposed to squad camps and that sort of thing, but they're two two players on the rise, and especially Tippett, as she's shown in the last couple of years. And it's going to be a great for everyone within their team environment. And just something from me quickly too. Thanks very much to a previous guest of our show in Sue Gordian. Sue has invited me along as a VIP to the Melbourne show of the Centurions, which we did talk to her about when we spoke to her. It's a theatre show featuring Liz Ellis, Sherelle McMahon and Kath Cox, reflecting on their netball careers and having a bit of fun about it with it too. And that'll be on October the 24th, the night before the Melbourne Test match. So it'll be a long day for me. I've got the Cox Plate race day at Moonee Valley, and then I'm straight off to the theatre. I'll probably be the only guy in a suit with a flower on it from the races, but I'm looking forward to seeing the Centurions, and hopefully in future shows I can report what it was like for the listener.
Well, thank you for joining us in the Australian studio, Ben, and enjoy your Dilmah tea.
Thanks very much, Luke. Good to chat, mate.
You've been listening to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. Tune in next time for more special guests and netball commentary exclusively on YouTube.